Oh yeah, this yes.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. And we start with the question straight away. There was a question that had to do with the qualities of the Buddha. We say that it takes 3 countless great eons to amass the necessary accumulation of merit and wisdom in order to become a Buddha. And then once you become a Buddha, you have those qualities of the Buddha that we mentioned, clairvoyances and special qualities of the mind and so on and so forth. So the question is, are all those qualities attained at the same time together or not? Okay, so actually you could say yes and you could say no. So when we talked about the qualities of the Buddha, we talked about the qualities of the body, and we said the Buddha has a body adorned with marks and signs. Now, we have marks and signs that are very similar to those of the Buddha, and these are obvious in the bodies of bodhisattvas. So you could say that the qualities that will become obvious or will become perfected at the end result already begin developing whilst one is on the path. On the other hand, we talk about the uncommon qualities of the mind of the Buddha. The Buddha has common qualities and uncommon qualities. We have a list of 18 uncommon qualities, unshared qualities. So these are the 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, the 3 types of close mindfulness, and great compassion. And as the term indicates, these are qualities that you will only find in the mind of the Buddha. You cannot find in anybody else. So you cannot have these qualities once you're still training. These are qualities that are obtained at the very end when enlightenment is obtained. But if we look at other qualities of the Buddha, these are called the shared qualities, common or shared qualities. And these are common or shared with hearers, solitary realizers, and so forth. So things such as the clairvoyance, the lack of affliction, the 4 immeasurables, ability to look at the past and future lives, and so forth. These are common. And also we have to see that as the bodhisattvas progress along the 10 grounds, gradually their powers and their qualities increase. So there is a gradual increase of qualities. Okay, so let's reconnect with our text. In our text, we are going through the major outlines. The first one is identifying the precious human rebirth with leisure and endowment. Then once we identify this, the second outline is how to take full advantage of the life of leisure and endowment. And then we find 3 outlines in this: training the mind in the stages of the path shared with the individual of the small scope, training the mind in the path shared with the individual of the middle scope, and training the mind on the path with the individual of the great scope. For the first one, training the mind in the stages of the path shared with the person of the small scope, we have 3 outlines: what you do in the preliminaries, what you do in the actual session, and what you do in the conclusion. So in the actual session, we know that we have 4 subjects reflecting on death and impermanence. The second one is reflecting the suffering of the lower migrations. The third one is going for refuge. And the fourth one is generating faith in and of belief in the law of cause and effect. So from those 4, we have actually covered the first 3. And last week we were talking about going for refuge, and we explained refuge under 5 outlines. The first one is the cause for going for refuge. The second one are the objects of refuge. The third one is the way in which we go for refuge, or the measure of having generated proper refuge. The fourth one are the benefits of going for refuge, and the sixth one is the advice or the training that comes after you have gone for refuge. So if we actually look at those 5, we could again reclassify them in 3. The agent, that which is established, and what follows. Okay, so the agent, or the agent that establishes refuge, are the first 4 in our list. So the cause for going for refuge, the objects of refuge, how you go for refuge, and the benefit of refuge. If you reflect upon those things, they become the cause or the agent, they become the agent or the thing that makes you go for refuge. So what you establish from that is pure refuge. So from the bottom of your heart, you definitely entrust yourself and you go for refuge. And then what follows after you have gone for refuge, obviously you have to follow all these instructions. There is advice. Some of it is subtle. Some of it is kind of like a more gross level. So that is the training that follows afterwards. So we have covered those, the section on refuge, and now we need to move in the next one, which is the presentation of the law of cause and effect. Okay, so if we go now into our text, you can see the major outlines on page 12. So actual practice is again divided into 4, reflecting on the uncertainty of death, reflecting on the unfortunate rebirth suffering, training in going for refuge, and generating the faith of belief in the law of causality. So this one, the 4th one, is found at the top of page 14. So as for the 4th outline, generating the faith of belief in the law of causality, whilst meditating on the Guru Yidam on the top of your head, contemplate the following Buddha's words. So we're going to do a contemplation of the law of cause and effect. And with that, we have the general presentation, the detailed presentation, and how we modify our behavior accordingly. In the general presentation, we have 4 aspects of karma to consider. The first one, that karma is definite. The second one, that karma increases. The third one, that you will not meet with karma that you have not created. And the fourth one is that karma, once created, does not go to waste. Okay, so we start with, with what we contemplate. So contemplate the following Buddha's words. Engaging in causal virtue will only give rise to resultant happiness, and suffering will never arise. Engaging in causal non-virtue will only give rise to resultant suffering, and happiness will never arise. So this is actually the first principle, that karma is definite. Then it says, furthermore, although one may have performed just a small causal virtue, if one does not encounter the counterprotective factors, its result will greatly increase. That's the second factor, the factor of increase. If the cause, either virtue or non-virtue, is not performed, the corresponding result of happiness or suffering will not be experienced. That's a third factor, that you will not meet with karma that you have not created. Moreover, if the virtues or non-virtuous cause has been performed and the counterproductive factor are not met, since performed acts never get wasted, the corresponding result of happiness and suffering will definitely come about. So this is the fourth aspect, that once karma is created, it does not go to waste. So we start here contemplating the law of cause and effect, because it is very important to generate this faith of belief in it. The actual outline is developing the faith of conviction that is the root of all temporary happiness and certain goodness. So actually we say belief in the law of cause and effect becomes the foundation for everything that we will develop. So all the grounds and the paths and all the qualities and all the practices we do rest upon this faith of belief upon the law of cause and effect. And this is presented as the correct mundane view by the Buddha, and it is stressed again and again that it is very important. So first of all, we begin contemplate. The way that we develop this faith of belief is by doing this general and specific contemplation. In terms of the general contemplation, we have to consider those 4 principles. The first principle is that karma is definite. Karma is definite here indicates that we will get specific definite results out of specific definite causes. So for example, if you plant a sweet tasting plant, if you plant the seeds of a plant that is sweet tasting. Like, so let's say you plant grapes, right? So the result and the fruit that you will get will only be something which has sweetness. It is impossible to get something which is hot and burning in the mouth, right? On the other hand, if you plant chili seeds, what you will get is a fruit that will be hot and burning in your mouth. It is impossible to get something which is sweet tasting and juicy and so forth. When you plant chili seeds, you're going to get chili peppers, right? Or similarly, if you, for example, plant barley grain on the field, it is impossible for you to get oats. You will only get barley. Okay, so for this way, through these examples, we understand that karma is definite. So as it says here, engaging in causal virtue will only give rise to resultant happiness, and suffering will never arise, and vice versa. So the second principle of karma is that karma increases, and we can see that with external causation. So, for example, you could plant the seed of mango, and from that there will be a tree. The tree will grow, and before long you will start seeing that the branches of the tree are filled with fruits of mango. And year after year, unfailing, you will get this incredible crop of mangoes, and all of this has come out of one single seed. So from one thing it multiplies and you get many. There are many stories that the Buddha has given in the sutras to illustrate that principle of multiplication. So we're going to look at this particular story. At the time of a previous Buddha, there was a carpenter. He was quite poor, but what he did was that he got a new vase, and he put clean water in the vase, and then he took one gold coin. This is all that he had. So he put that gold coin into the vase that was filled with clean water, and he offered this to the Sangha. As a result of practicing generosity like this, and remember, he only offered one coin within a vessel with clear water, in life after life, he was born with a very good, very impressive body. He had a golden complexion, and he had a striking appearance. And finally, he came into this birth that coincided with the time where Buddha Shakyamuni appeared in this world. And at that time, he was born as a son in the family. And in that family, everything, everything was like provided almost miraculously. All the food, all the drinks, all the necessities they had, it was just growing and flowing, and it was provided like this. Eventually, this person actually met the Buddha, and by following the Buddha, he became an arhat. So it illustrates what great results of abundance you can get out of one single act, a small act. And later on, when the Buddha passed into parinirvana, this, Gelong, this ordained, he went out for alms. Now, he was in a company of other ordained Sangha, and the other ordained Sangha, they remain behind meditating. So he was the only one of that group went out for alms. And whatever he received in alms on that day, he came back and he offered it to his companions, the meditators. As a result of this act of generosity, it is said that in life after life, he had this, wherever he was reborn, everything was offered to him. Everything was totally abundant. He never lacked anything. And he became like a great benefactor, a great sponsor. He had so much wealth and capacity. Everything he desired, everything he thought about, everything was accessible to him. At the end, also, he met the Buddha, and he trained by the Buddha, and he reached the state of an arhat. I missed the story because we had an airplane passing, and I wonder if Geshe could repeat, or maybe I listen to the story later. It's a story that illustrates the effect of multiplication, even when you do a small negative action. So you do a small negative action and you end up with suffering that you might have, very heavy suffering that you have to endure for a very long time. I only got the beginning of the story. That was it was at the time of Buddha Kasyapa, and there was a monk. He was meditating, and he came out of his meditation kind of like for a walk. He went out wandering. Then the aeroplane passed. Then I came back to the point where he was reborn as a Naga, and he was reborn as a Naga, and he had a big problem in his head, like the cover part of his head was open, and like his brain was exposed, and he experienced incredible suffering for a very long time, and he didn't have the opportunity to listen to any teachings and so forth. And that was the result of transgressing the instruction that he should not go out wandering. So just a small breaking of the rules resulted in quite a big negative result. But I'm sorry, I missed the actual part of the story, exactly what happened. Okay, we come to the third principle of karma. The third principle says that if you will not meet with karma that you have not created. So it's like this: if you do not actually plant anything in your garden, if you do not plant any seeds, you will not have anything sprouting out of the garden because you didn't plant anything. So it is like this with good or bad rebirths. If you want to have a good rebirth, it is important that you establish the causes of this good rebirth. If you establish those causes of good rebirth, you will end up with a good rebirth as a result. If you do not establish these causes, you will not come up in a good rebirth. And similarly, if you do not establish the causes for a bad rebirth, you will not take a bad rebirth. Okay, we have many stories in the sutras that illustrate those points of karma. In particular, here we're talking about how you cannot meet with karma you have not created. So we have a king in India, King Udayana, and he had a queen, and this queen had achieved the result of non-returner. And actually, he had a whole harem, because there were actually 500 ladies, and all of them, they had obtained the path of seeing. But one day, a Brahmin in the kingdom set the whole palace on fire. And all of those 500 ladies, although they had achieved the result of arhat, of a non-returner, and they had miraculous powers, and they could actually fly up in the sky, and you would think that they would escape that fire. However, all of them, they perished in the fire. They were burned in the fire, and they died there. Amongst all those ladies, there was a servant, a lady servant, and she had a body that was deformed, right? She could not stand upright. And she was the only one who escaped that fire. She didn't have any special powers. She hadn't obtained the path of seeing. She was not a once returner. She had a deformed body, but she was the only one who walked alive out of this fire that burned everybody else. So the question is, why did she escape and everybody was burned? She escaped because she had not taken part. She didn't have any share in the karma that those 500 ladies had created in a previous life. So because she was not part of that karma, she did not have to share the consequences that they had to endure. Eventually they were killed in that fire, despite having high realizations and having the powers to fly up in the sky, because in a previous life they had set fire into that household of that Brahmin, who then came in this life and set the palace on fire and so forth. All right. So they met with the karma they had created, but the servant lady was not part of that story, of that karma. Okay, so Geshe was actually repeating the story for our benefit. So you can see that we have a group of 500 ladies here who are quite advanced. They have reached the state of a non-returner, the state of an arhat. But despite their high realizations and their miraculous powers, they all perished in that fire. They perished in the fire because they had created the karma in the previous life. In their previous life, they set alight grains and so forth. They destroyed property by fire. And because they have created this karma, they were then in that later life had to meet with the consequences. However, their servant, who happened to be at the palace at the time that this fire broke out, the servant girl had not taken part in lighting those fires in the previous lives, and therefore she didn't have to, she survived this all-consuming fire. It's a story that indicates that you will not meet with karma that you have not created. We come now to the fourth principle of karma, that it says that once karma is created, it does not go to waste. In terms of the external causation, we can see that a seed, for example, can go to waste. So if you leave the seed there for a very long time, it might rot, it will deteriorate, it loses the power to germinate. So you might have a seed, if you don't use it straight away, it basically goes to waste and you will not necessarily get a sprout out of it. Although this might happen with external causation, when we talk about internal causation, this does not apply. If you create the karma will endure. So we have this quotation from Sutra that says, the karma of embodied beings does not vanish over hundreds of eons. If the prerequisites and the time are right, karma will ripen to results. So it says here, even if you leave it for a very long time, 100 eons, it will not go to waste. When the time is right, when the conditions are right, the result will come into maturation, unless you apply the antidote in the case of a non-virtuous action. If you apply an antidote, you can remove it and purify it. But if you apply no antidote and you just leave it there, it will come into fruition. Okay, so as you can see here with this presentation of karma, we say we're going to have the general presentation of karma and then we're going to have specific presentation of karma. In the general presentation of karma, we present those are four main principles of karma. And we have to understand that these four main principles, that karma is definite, that karma increases, that karma once you will not meet with karma you have not created, and karma once created does not go to waste. So these four principles, you have to understand that they equally apply to virtuous and non-virtuous instances of karma. So it applies to any type, any action of karma. So this is what we get from the general presentation. And then in the specific presentation, we have these two things that we want to examine. What is black or negative karma and what are the results of that? And what is white or positive karma, virtuous karma, and what are the results of that? So in the specific presentation, we are looking at specific actions, good or bad, and then the results that come from those. Okay, so we're talking about black and white karma, or virtuous and non-virtuous karma. So first of all, we have to understand that whatever karma we create it through the three doors of activities. So in other words, whatever karma, good or bad, we will create through our activities of our body, our speech, and our mind. So roughly, you could say that all the activities that we do with our body, speech, and mind are categorized or presented under the 10 paths of action, or the 10 karmic paths. And every type of activity, even the heaviest types of activity, actually can be categorized in those. So, for example, we know that we have the list of the 5 deeds of immediate retribution, and we also have the 5 deeds that are near or similar to them. So, for example, in the 5 deeds of immediate retribution, we have things like killing your father, killing your mother, killing an arhat. And you can see that those fall under the category of killing, right? Then we have the next one, causing division in the Sangha, which comes into under divisive speech. Then we have drawing blood from the Tathagata with a bad intention. It comes under the malice, of the mind, right? Then if we look at the 5 deeds that are similar to the 5 deeds of immediate retribution, we have things such as like having intercourse with your mother, who is an arhat, and that falls under the category of sexual misconduct. We have things such as killing bodhisattvas, and this comes under the category of killing. We have things such as killing learners. Again, it's a case of killing. We have things such as stealing the property of the Sangha, which comes under the negative action of stealing, and so forth. So the heaviest of actions that we have, they fall into the main categories. For each activity, we identify 3 things. We identify the basis, we identify the motivation, carrying out the actual activity, and conclusion. Okay, so here we are discussing classifications of karma. So first of all, we need to make the distinction between negative karma and positive karma. Sometimes they're referred by the terms black karma and white karma, or negativity and virtue, or non-virtue and virtue, and so forth. All of those terms are quite easy to understand. Okay, so if we look at the presentation of Master Nagarjuna, he gives us an explanation of how we can categorize. So it says, any activity of your body and speech that you carry out motivated with a negative intention becomes negative or black karma that is harming yourself and others. So very clearly, the negativity is something that becomes harmful to self and others. You're motivated by a bad intention, and that can give rise to various types of activity, physical and mental activities. The opposite of that is how we categorize the virtuous activity. So it says, motivated by a good intention, activities that you carry out that become beneficial for yourself and others are considered to be virtuous karma. So it is quite clearly defined in terms of black and white, really. So first of all, we will begin with a presentation of the 10 non-virtuous actions. We describe them, this group of 10 are described as the 10 paths, karmic paths of negative actions. And we have 3 in relation to the body, which is killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. We have 4 in relation to the speech, which is lying, divisive speech, insulting words, and idle gossip. We understand divisive speech as that will cause disharmony. Insulting words are very harsh words, and idle gossip becomes meaningless conversation. And then we have 3 of the mind, which is covetousness, which is desiring the possessions of others. The second one is harmful intent, malice. And the third one is having wrong views, such as believing that the law of cause and effect do not exist, past and future lives do not exist, the 3 jewels do not exist, and so forth. Okay, so let's look at the first one. The first negative action of the body is killing. So for killing to take place, we must have all the elements in place. First of all, we need the motivation, and the motivation is having the wish to kill. And that motivation actually can be any of the three root afflictions. It could be attachment, it could be hatred, or it could be confusion. So remember that verse that we gave from Master Nagarjuna that says any action that is motivated by bad intention. So it's referring exactly to this motivation. So the first thing is the motivation. You want to kill. The second one is the object towards which you direct the action. So first of all, you must identify that other living being correctly, and it must be someone other than yourself. The third one is the activity, the carrying out the actual activity. So once you have the intention, you carry out the activity exactly as you have wished. And finally, when that other being, person or animal, whatever, dies before you, this is where we have the fourth element, which is the conclusion. And this is the time where the karmic deed is actually finished, concluded. So as we say, in terms of motivation, people might kill for different reasons. Some kill due to attachment, some kill due to hatred, some kill due to ignorance. So for example, you could be attached to other people's possessions and wealth and so forth, and you wish to have it for yourself, and then you kill the person in order to steal the money, right? We see those things happen. We can look at examples of killing out of a motivation of hatred. So, for example, if you have someone that you consider to be your enemy, someone with whom you have conflict or dispute and so forth, you might go as far as killing that person. You're motivated by your hatred. We also have killing that takes place due to confusion. So, for example, there are non-Buddhist traditions that say that you can make blood sacrifices, you can kill animals, make blood sacrifices, and by making this blood offering, you accumulate merit. So it's out of your confusion, you go out and kill animals. Or the other view that, all those animals, they are created for us to use and enjoy, and there's actually no negativity involved in killing those animals because they were created for us to kill and consume. So you kill in that way, out of confusion. Okay, let's come to the second one, which is stealing or taking that which is not given. First of all, let's look at the nature of this misdeed. So stealing refers to taking the wealth or taking the possessions that belong to somebody else. And you might take it either directly, obviously, by using force, or you might want to steal it indirectly in a hidden, concealed manner. Okay, so we know how taking or obtaining wealth can happen. Either you do it by force or you do it secretly by stealing it. Again, as we say, you could be motivated by attachment, by hatred, or by ignorance. An example of theft that is motivated by attachment is when you see, let's say, a possession that of somebody else that is a very beautiful object and you desire it, and then you go and steal it at night. Motivated stealing that is motivated by hatred is, for example, you go and steal things from your enemy because you want to cause harm. You want to cause the enemy to be upset or to be weakened, to become impoverished, and so forth. Stealing out of confusion can come from various beliefs. So, for example, non-Buddhists believe that Brahma has created everything in the world, and therefore Brahma is the right owner of everything that exists in the world. And Brahmins are the children of Brahma, and therefore, if it happens that their wealth declines, there is actually no negativity for them to appropriate or to take and use any object they like. So they say there's no fault in that if you're a Brahmin. So out of confusion, you go out and take other people's property. We come to the next one, which is sexual misconduct. Sexual misconduct by nature is the desire to have intercourse and carrying out the activity motivated either due to attachment or hatred or ignorance. So in order for sexual misconduct to occur, you must be engaging the wrong individual at the wrong place, the wrong part of the body, and at the wrong time. So when all those are in place, we are having a case of sexual misconduct. Now, sexual misconduct as we say, can be motivated due to attachment. So, for example, you look at the wife of your neighbor, she appears to be very attractive to you, you become attached to her, and you create a relationship, establish a relationship, and you have sexual intercourse with her. A case of sexual misconduct due to hatred is that you look at another lady, somebody else's wife or partner and so forth, and out of great hatred for that person, you rape. The third case, which is sexual misconduct in terms of confusion, again, it comes from various non-Buddhist beliefs here that say that everything is to be enjoyed and that, every person has to be enjoyed. And by doing this, you're creating the causes for getting a higher lineage, rebirth into a higher lineage. So it's confusion. We have covered the first three that are three non-virtuous activities of the body: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. And now we'll begin with the fourth one of the speech. The first one is lying. So lying here is expressing words that do not conform with the truth. First of all, you must have the intention or the motivation to deceive someone. And then with this intention, you are uttering words that are not true. And when the other person actually understands, comprehends what you said, this is the time when the activity is completed or established. As we say, in terms of the intention, again, it can be done due to attachment, hatred, or confusion. Lies that we say due to attachment is, for example, if you are attached to receiving honors and service from others or presents from others, you, motivated by this, you say lies in order to present yourself as being someone who is a suitable object to receive service and honor and presents. Lying that is done out of hatred is things that you might say to your enemy, trying to fool them. So you twist the truth. There might be a situation that is beneficial for them, but you turn it around so that they will not benefit at all from the situation. So it's lying due to hatred. Then there is lying due to confusion. So, for example, there are people who believe that there are 5 occasions in which arhats can say lies and that there's no consequences of saying lies. So out of confusion, people might say lies. Okay, we come to the next one after lying, which is divisive speech. So in order for the karmic path of divisive speech to be established, first of all, you must have a basis that are other people. Either they get along or they don't get along. Second, you should have the recognition of that they are other. They are like the correct recognition of who these groups or these people are. Then you have this intention to say those divisive words. You speak the words, and then these other people understand the words and they fall out. So you do create the division. So when all this is done, the karmic path is actually established. So it is interesting here to look at the validity of those divisive words. You could be saying the truth and cause other people to fall out, or you might use lies in order to cause other people to fall out. If you use true, and you divide people is just a case of divisive speech. But if you use lies in order to cause division, you're actually committing two negative actions, because you have the lying plus the divisive speech. So be aware of that distinction. And again, divisive speech can happen due to attachment, due to hatred, or due to confusion. Due to attachment, so let's say you have a friend that is very close friend to you, and you value that friend, and then you notice that this friend is actually developing a new friendship with somebody else. And you, because you have attachment for your friend and the relationship you already have, now you start worrying that if your friend finds a new friend, they might neglect you. So now you are saying different things to separate or to break up this new friendship that your friend is creating. Okay, so this is due to attachment. Of course, you can cause division due to your hatred. So let's say you have an enemy, but even your enemy has friends. So you say different things to separate your enemy from his or her friends. So this is division due to hatred. And finally, we have division due to confusion or ignorance, because there are people who think that speaking divisive words is actually dharma. So this is confused idea. So if you believe in that and you act in this way, you do it out of confusion. We come to the next one, which is insulting or very harsh words. And first of all, for those who you have to have a basis, so you're going to insult another sentient being, you must have a recognition that is unmistaken. Then you must have the intention that comes from some affliction or delusion. So you might either speak words that are true or words that are false. It doesn't matter. It is the actual words that you choose that are very harmful, very harsh, insulting words. And when the other person hears them and understands them, then the karmic path is actually established. So as we say here, you can be motivated by any of the three main delusions, and it doesn't matter whether the words that you use are true or false. The thing is that you have the intention to harm the other person with these words. So, for example, motivated by attachment, using harsh words. If, for example, you are attached to service and honor and receiving presents and so forth, you could be scolding other people, or if you think that other people are trying to take away possessions that you value, then you use these insulting words. If you do it out of hatred, you can use very foul language if you are speaking to someone that you strongly dislike. And also you can do it out of confusion, because there are people who think that criticizing and using harsh language is not a problem. It's nothing negative about it. So it's out of confusion. Okay, we come to the next one of the speech, which is idle gossip. So first of all, if we look at the nature of this activity, is talking pointlessly about things that are frivolous, motivated by afflictions. So we understand that here is about, we talk about talking about things that are not important. Okay, it is something that can happen due to attachment, due to anger, or due to confusion. So, for example, due to attachment, let's say that you have desire for possessions, all right? So you see something that you like and you're thinking, how can I obtain this? So you think, I can talk my way through this, right? And if I talk a lot about this, maybe I can receive it. Or, for example, when you are talking someone up, like you fancy another person, and you're sort of like flirting in a sense, right? So you're talking and talking lightly, frivolously about this, that, and the other. Or if you are have attachment for receiving service and honor, and you start using all those nice words, and you keep on talking and talking, hoping that somehow this you will receive something in return. So this is idle gossip, or idle talk due to attachment. It can happen due to hatred, when you endlessly talk about the faults of your enemies, like a non-stop. And it can happen due to confusion, when you engage into conversations, meaningless things like gossips or different stories that have nothing to do with Buddhism, or if they are within Buddhism, if you completely misunderstand or misrepresent the meaning of the stories and so forth. So far we have completed the 3 of the body and the 4 of the speech. We begin now with the last 3, which are the 3 mental activities. The first one of those is covetousness. So covetousness is actually desiring to obtain the possessions of another person, motivated through any of the 3 main afflictions. So as we can say, it happens due to attachment. You are looking at the possessions of the other person, you desire them, you want to obtain them, and you generate covetousness due to attachment. You're just thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could have this? You can also have it due to hatred, because you are looking at your enemy, the possessions of your enemy, and you're wishing to obtain those in order to cause harm to the enemy. You're thinking, may they lose their property, may they come to get their house, and so forth. And finally, it can happen due to confusion, if you're thinking that actually there's nothing wrong with covetousness, right? I can desire the possessions of others, and there's no negativity involved in that. Okay, so in the first 7, when we were talking about non-virtuous actions of the body and the speech, it was not very difficult. It was actually quite easy to identify the different parts that establish the karmic path. So, for example, we can identify the motivation, we can identify the recognition, we can identify the carrying out the activity and the conclusion. But when we start talking about the 3 mental activities, it's not so easy to identify or to differentiate between the motivation, the carrying out the activity, and the conclusion of the activity. The way that we differentiate those is through the intensity of the thought. All right, so for example, we're just presenting covetousness. And we say covetousness is that desire. You're desiring to obtain the possessions of another person. So when you're at this first level, so we're kind of like fantasizing, right? So this is the level of the motivation. But when you develop a different level, you're kind of like becoming obsessed. You have this inappropriate attention. All you can think about is how you can obtain the possessions of the other person. So it has come up a notch. So now we define this as carrying out the activity. And finally, when you reach this state where you completely make up your mind and you say, definitely I'm going to get those objects, right? This is like the conclusion of the act. So we differentiate the 3 stages through gradual increase of the intensity of that desire, of that thought. So the same thing applies for harmful intent and for wrong views as well. Okay, so we're just talking about covetousness, and we say that you have to be motivated by an affliction. Actually, we're looking at 5 different aspects of affliction that must be present in order for the activity to be established. The first level, or the first affliction, is attachment. So you're desiring that object. As we say, covetousness is the desire to possess the possession of somebody else, right? So the first level is that you have desire. The second level is that you begin thinking, wouldn't it be nice if that was mine? All right. So you desire it, you admire it. The second level is, wouldn't it be nice if it was mine? The third level is you develop a taste for it. Develop a taste for it is, for example, you imagine now if you're coveting the food of the other person, and you say, "Oh, if only if I were to get this, it wouldn't be so sweet when I eat it." Or if you're coveting the clothes of the other person, you're thinking, "Oh, it would be nice if I had their T-shirt. I don't know, it would feel so soft, on my body." So you have the taste or like the experience of what it would be nice, how it would be like when you get the object. The third, that was the third one. The fourth one is almost like a prayer or a motivation, pushing yourself further, and you say, "May I get it? May I go out there and get it?" And the fifth one is that you don't have a mind of restraint. You don't have any sense of consideration or shame or anything like this. So you say, whether it is negative or not, I really want to get the possession of this other person, right? So there's no regret, there's no restraint, no nothing. Okay, so all those five: attachment, wishing that it was mine, having the taste, fantasizing about the taste or the actual experience, motivating yourself further, may I get it, and fifth, having no regret, no constraint, not thinking, it doesn't matter if it's negative, I want to have it. We continue with the ninth one, which is harmful intention. Again, we are motivated by affliction, and we have the intention to harm somebody else. It can happen due to attachment, due to hatred, or due to confusion. So, for example, if you develop attachment for the possessions or the wealth of another person, you might develop that wish to harm this person. It can happen due to hatred because, let's say, for example, you, out of anger towards your enemy, you want to harm the enemy, and then you generate that intention to harm. And it can happen out of confusion if you believe that there is no negativity involved in a harmful intent. As we did before with covetousness, we say you're motivated by affliction, and we must have 5 aspects of afflictions that are present. The first one is very deep-rooted dislike. The second one is a sense of intolerance. The third one is that you're thinking how sweet it will feel when I harm this person. The next one is kind of like motivating or pushing yourself. May I get to harm this person? And the last one is having no sense of shame or regret or trying to restrain yourself from having such harmful thoughts towards the other person. Okay, very quickly, we're going through the last one, which is wrong views. And wrong views, again, you're motivated by afflictions, and you come to the point of denying the existence of things that actually exist. So you're deprecating existing phenomena. So to give an example, you could be denying the law of cause and effect. You're denying the existence of the Four Noble Truths. You are denying the existence of past and future lives. As we say, it can happen due to attachment. You're motivated through to attachment. So you develop these particular views that suit you, right? There are certain things that you want to obtain. And you say, for example, if you're dealing with a king or, someone, a ruler, and, you think that they will favor you if you say that the law of cause and effect does not exist. Then you say, okay, the law of cause and effect does not exist, because you think you're going to receive some favors if you say that. It can happen out of hatred. So, for example, you're in a situation where you could practice generosity towards your enemy, but because you're very angry with that person, you start saying there's no benefit in practicing generosity. There are no good results coming from generosity. So wrong view due to hatred. And finally, it can happen due to confusion. You find all sorts of wrong reasons to establish that things that actually exist, you try to persuade yourself and others that those things do not exist. Okay, so we will stop here for tonight. We have introduced the 10 non-virtuous actions. It is important to recognize them, to be alert. And when you see that you are in a situation where you are in danger of committing any one of those 10 non-virtuous actions, you should stop yourself, because you think the result of this is to take rebirth in the lower migrations. The result of this will be heavy suffering. So you want to avoid it as much as possible. Okay, so we stop here for tonight. Sorry, we went a little bit over time. That's the end of the session.